this portion of the agenda?
Yeah, I can explain briefly the procedure. So nominations and voting for each office will be taken in the following order. We'll first do the chair, then we'll do the vice chair, and then we'll do the secretary position. The chair will call for nominations from the floor. Any commissioner may nominate by saying, "I nominate." There's no second necessary. So once a commissioner nominates, then they can, if the commissioner is nominated, they can rise and either accept the nomination or decline the nomination. A commissioner can nominate himself or herself, just to get that clear. The chair will announce each nomination. After hearing no further nominations for the position, the chair will close nominations and the commission will vote on each nomination in the order in which they were received. So the first nominee to win a majority vote is elected. The chair will then open the nominations to the next position. A member can be nominated for multiple positions, but can only be elected to one. So the first position will be for the chair. So the current chair will proceed by calling for nominations for the chair and then proceeding as I outlined. And if there's any questions while we're going through it, I'm here to guide us.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. So what we'll do is we will call for nominations for the chair. Are there any commissioners who would like to nominate anyone for the position of chair? Yes, Commissioner Goldstein.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Roche.
Thank you. Commissioner Ali Sullivan. Did you have something to say?
No.
Okay. I think nominating Commissioner Roche is a great idea as well. Commissioner Roche, do you accept that nomination?
I do accept that nomination. Thank you, both Commissioner Goldstein and Commissioner Bonilla. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So would we call for the vote now?
Yeah, if there's no further nominations, then call for the vote.
Okay. Are there any further nominations? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote to accept Commissioner Roche as our chair. Denise, would you mind taking the roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Ali Sullivan.
I guess aye or
Aye.
Yeah, yep,
Yes, aye. Commissioner Goldstein.
Aye.
Commissioner Patton.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Roche.
Aye. Thank you.
Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
Chair Bonilla.
Very excitingly, aye as well. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Now we'll go for the vice chair. Yes, Commissioner Roche.
I would like to nominate Chair Bonilla for vice chair.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Okay. Well, I do accept that nomination, Commissioner Roche, so I guess I'll call for the vote. Denise, would you mind doing a roll call vote for the appointment of me as vice chair?
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Ali Sullivan.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldstein.
Aye.
Commissioner Patton.
Aye. Aye.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Roche.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Bonilla.
Yep. Yes.
Chair Bonilla.
Yes, Denise. Thank you. I as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Now for the secretary position. Are there anyone want to make a nomination for the secretary role?
I nominate Commissioner Patton.
Okay. Any other nominations?
I'd also like like to nominate Commissioner Stevens.
Okay. Commissioner Patton, do you accept the nomination?
I do not accept the nomination. I defer to Commissioner Stevens.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Stevens, do you accept the nomination?
I do, but I was backing Commissioner Patton on that one. But if he doesn't want to accept, I will accept.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for accepting. Are there any additional nominations? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Chan, would you mind doing another roll call vote? And this one is for the appointment of Commissioner Stevens as the secretary.
Thank you. I just want to be, make sure I record this correctly. Who nominated Commissioner Patton?
Commissioner Goldstein.
And Commissioner Patton declined, correct?
Correct.
And Commissioner Roche nominated Commissioner Stevens?
That's right.
Correct? Okay. And Commissioner Stevens accepted. All right.
Yes.
Here we go.
Okay.
Commissioner Ali Sullivan.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldstein.
Aye.
Commissioner Patton.
Aye.
Commissioner Roche.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens.
Yes.
Chair Bonilla.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, motion passes. Commissioner Stevens is the secretary. So I guess, Mr. Assistant City Attorney Joe, I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
So now that I'm the vice chair, do I turn the meeting over to the chair? And
Yes, that's
Okay.
traditionally what we do.
so with all pleasure, I turn the meeting over to our newly elected chair. So Chair Roche, I'll turn the meeting over to you. Thank you so much and congratulations.
Thank you, Chair Bonilla. Thank you for setting a great example. So now what do I do?
I believe we're at public comments. So if you want to open public comments for items not listed on the agenda, and then
Okay.
if you have any.
Okay, and if you don't mind, just continue to prompt me in the right way if I'm not, doing this right. So
Sure.
I would like to open public comments. Do we have, Secretary Chan, do we have people waiting for public comment?
All right, let me make this announcement. If you wish to speak and you are using the Zoom application, please click the raise hand button. If you are dialing in, press *9 to raise your hand on the phone and use *6 to unmute yourself when called to speak. If you are streaming the meeting through Zoom on your computer, but dialing in via phone, please mute yourself so that there is no feedback sound during the meeting. If there is disruptive feedback or excessive noise during the meeting, your audio will be disabled. Okay, so we have quite a few attendees, but nobody has raised their hand at this moment.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
So we'll wait a few minutes and see if maybe somebody wants to raise their hand and comment.
Would you like to raise your hand, anybody? I have 8 attendees. We have one person. All right, we have Zachariah Okenda. All right, let me, hang on a second. It's been a little while and all right, hang on. I'm gonna call
Hi.
Zachariah Okenda, hang on.
He's on.
All right,
Just let me
Mr. Okenda?
Hi. Can you all hear me okay?
We can.
Awesome. I just wanted to say hello, introduce myself real quick, congratulate the new Chair Roche, Vice Chair Bonilla, and Secretary Stevens. Secretary, that's fun. I just wanted to introduce myself and say I'll be attending the meeting from the capacity of community member today, and just to kind of get a feel, and wanted to say I'm really looking forward to serving with all of you starting the next meeting, and thank you for all the work you do putting into the commission and the service to the city. So thank you for that time. I'll just end there.
Thank you, Zachariah. And we look forward to you joining the commission in the future, in February, I think. Thank you. All right, anybody else from the public comment? Secretary Chan?
Chair Roche, I do not see anybody else.
Okay, should we wait a few more minutes or should we just go forward?
I think we can move forward because they had enough time to raise their hands.
Okay.
During Mr. Okenda's, when he was speaking.
Okay, so it looks like now we're going to move on to the action items. And we open the public hearing and we are going to go to our first agenda item, which is the single family residence on Homer Avenue.
Commissioner Roche, do you just want to maybe read out what it is, the proposed single family?
Okay, thank you. Yeah. The proposed single family residence and attached accessory dwelling unit on a vacant lot, 0.21 acres hillside lot with an average slope greater than 20%, located at 2579 Home Avenue. Let's see, requiring approval of a site plan review and grading permit application. And the applicants are with us, I believe, right, to give a presentation. Okay. Thank you. Is that good? And I turn it over to staff now. Is that right?
Yeah, you call for the staff report.
Okay.
Ms. Chair,
Yes.
I need to make a disclosure regarding this item.
Oh, right. Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So I live slightly more than 1,000 feet from the subject property. I am a member of the Old Highlands Association. I'm not a board member. I did not participate in any of the comments prepared by the association. I did speak with Bob Carlson this evening. He wanted to confirm that I received the addendum dated January 25th and 26th and 27th that we received this evening. That being said, I don't believe I have any conflict of interest that would preclude me from reviewing tonight's project. Thank you.
Okay, and did you, Assistant City Attorney Burke, do you want to weigh in on that at all, or do you agree? Is it his conflict is fine?
Yeah, we've discussed it, and his disclosure is appropriate.
Okay, thank you for that, Commissioner Stevens. And so now I'll call for the staff report.
Good evening, Chair Roche and Commissioners. As you know, my name is Marcus Martinez. I'm an associate planner here with the City of Hayward, and I'll be doing tonight's presentation. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. And in the meantime, I'll just say Happy New Year. Post. And I believe I have been disabled from sharing my screen. I need to get that fixed, and then I will go ahead and proceed.
Marcus, are you able to share now?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Sarah. Okay. And are we able to see my screen? Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, I saw a thumbs up. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So the item before you tonight is a site plan review and grading permit application for a proposed single-family residence on a hillside, along with an accessory dwelling unit. The project site is located at 2579 Home Avenue, which is currently a 0.21 acre vacant hillside property, which has a dual frontage along Hillcrest Avenue as well as Home Avenue. The project site is located within the single-family residential RS zoning district, with a land use designation of low density residential in the Hayward 2040 general plan. To provide some orientation, the project site slopes from Hillcrest Avenue at the top of the hill down to Home Avenue. The image on the right hand of the screen is a view from Home Avenue looking up towards Hillcrest Avenue to provide some context. Providing a project summary, the applicant is requesting approval of a site plan review and grading permit, given that the average slope of the parcel is greater than 20%. The scope of work involves the development of a new single-family residence with 3,522 square feet of living area, which will include 5 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms, and the single-family home will include its own 2-car garage. In addition, the project involves the concurrent development of an attached accessory dwelling unit, also known as ADU for short. The ADU will be a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, and will also include its own separate 2-car garage. The project also proposes site improvements such as driveways, retaining walls, connections to utilities, etc., as well as new drought-tolerant landscaping in compliance with the city's bay-friendly, water-efficient landscape ordinance. The slide above shows the site plan of the proposed single-family home and ADU, where the proposed single-family home will be facing Hillcrest Avenue on the right hand of the screen towards the top of the slope, and the ADU will be located at the bottom of the hill facing Home Avenue. As mentioned earlier, the single-family home and ADU will each have their own 2-car garage, which will be accessible by new driveways along each street. The next slide shows some of the proposed elevations for the new home. The east elevation on the left side of the screen shows the proposed residence stepping down along the hillside as encouraged by our city's hillside design guidelines. This includes various offsets and different wall planes to prevent one continuous wall along this elevation. The south elevation that's shown on the right side of the screen would be the elevation from Hillcrest Avenue, which is at the top of the hill, displaying a single-story facade. The slide above shows a colored rendering of the proposed architecture for the residence. The 3 project renderings. They display simulations of the proposed ADU and the single-family home, and as they would appear from Home Avenue, demonstrating a series of decks and open outdoor spaces along each level. The design of the 2 dwellings will use a combination of light smooth stucco for the body of the home that will be contrasted against the wood siding, dark trim windows, and stone cladding at each of the facades. The roof plan will be a combination of a shed and low angled roofs to complement the overall modern design aesthetic. Understanding that the city has received a lot of correspondence related to the ADU component of this application, I just want to go ahead and provide a brief slide on state legislation, specifically as it relates to ADUs, which limits how local agencies can actually review these. To begin, the governor signed about 5 bills in late 2019, which became effective in early 2020, which further limited local review of ADUs with the goal of streamlining their development. Part of that legislation states the following: that ADUs are limited to ministerial non-discretionary review, meaning if the ADU meets the requirements of the city and state, that the city is required to issue them a permit. Secondly, the ADUs are not counted towards density. So understanding that this parcel is not more than 10,000 square feet, which would otherwise allow them to have 2 units, ADUs are a way to be ancillary units towards the existing single-family home or the proposed single-family home. In addition, ADUs are limited to objective measurable development standards such as setbacks, lot coverage, height, and size. And unfortunately, subjective architectural design requirements are not enforceable. And lastly, ADUs are exempt from meeting the parking requirements if the ADU is within a half mile of public transit, which this project site actually is. The proposed project complies with the, moving on to staff's analysis, the proposed project complies with the development standards of the RS zoning district and state law. The development adheres to the city's hillside design guidelines, which again encourages stepping structures along the hillside with the goal of minimizing excessive grading and cuts into the hillside. And lastly, staff believes that the project will result in an attractive single-family home with a modern contemporary design, along with new site landscaping, which will enhance the overall neighborhood. In accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act, also known as CEQA, the project is deemed categorically exempt per section 15303 of the CEQA guidelines, as the project involves the development of a single-family home. With that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council approval of the site plan and grading permit application based on the required findings and subject to the conditions of approval. This concludes staff's presentation, and staff is available for any questions. And the applicant is also present on our Zoom call should there be any questions for them as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation, Marcus. And so now we are going to go to commissioner questions for the city staff. And just a reminder that this is a time to ask questions of staff and I think the applicant, and to reserve your opinions until after we hear from the public on the item. Okay, with that, do we have commissioner questions? Commissioner Goldstein.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Marcus, can you help me understand the issue that was raised in 2 or 3 of the letters, maybe all of them, about what the letter writers believed was an existing agreement between the city and the OHHA, I'm not saying it right, OHHA, because I think that's kind of at the root of the contest from those letter writers, that there was a pre-existing agreement, and it sounds like we're abandoning that agreement. Can you help me understand that a little better, please?
Yeah, sure. And I might have to tag on our planning manager, Sarah, to help me out. But from my understanding, in the 1990s, the what I'm going to describe as OHA for short, to stand for the Old Highlands Homeowners Association, did work with the city to develop the Hayward Highlands neighborhood plan, which kind of developed some land use policies and some goals, understanding the future growth and development of that area. Since that time, we have adopted a new general plan, which was done in 2014, and we wrapped in a lot of those goals and policies into our current general plan. So that way we can have one consolidated document, which included a lot of the goals and policies, not only for the Hayward Highlands neighborhood plan, but for all the other various neighborhood plans throughout the city.
So in essence, the reference to this OHA, does that make that former agreement basically nullified? Or does it still have standing because it was incorporated in our 2040 general plan?
It's more so the latter. I wouldn't necessarily call it necessarily a contractual agreement, but more so an adopted neighborhood plan that was adopted by the city council via resolution. And again, yes, those goals and policies that were adopted within that document were kind of rolled into our most recent general plan.
Okay, so from your point of view, there's no disagreement between what was agreed upon and what's being proposed today?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, next looks like we have Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. The first question is, why are developments on slopes greater than 20% required to be reviewed by City Council?
I'm happy to answer that. The city's grading ordinance actually requires that if you are going to be grading on slopes greater than that the city council should be issuing that grading permit. It's part of our adopted grading ordinance. We've had these conversations before, and I know Commissioner Patton has requested us to sort of relook at that, and we have looked at that with our Public Works Director. But until we make a formal modification to the grading ordinance, those standards apply. And so in this particular case, because that has not been updated or modified, that it does require that the grading permit be issued by City Council.
So my second question is so in general, are there any rules related to the number of people that occupy a single family residence? And I guess specifically, if one were to build a house with 5, 6, 7 bedrooms, and if they were to rent the individual rooms out to multiple folks, is that allowed?
And there would be nothing that would preclude that, provided that it didn't change the use and became like a dormitory or some other more commercial use. But if there was a homeowner that rented out the rooms individually or to a family that had multiple people living with them, that would be allowed. And I'm not sure if Joe, you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, I just wanted to build upon that answer and just state that there are constitutional limitations that preclude the city from having some sort of strict, number of people, because some people's families are larger or have extended families. And if you put a cap for number of people, that infringes upon their constitutional rights to associate with their family. So there is some constitutional limitations there. I'd just like to add.
So if a person had 7 cars in a property, as long as they were keeping their cars properly parked and not, that's still fine too.
As long as it doesn't arise to the nuisance level, that would be fine. But we still do have, authority to enforce nuisances, public nuisances.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Patton, and then I see you, Commissioner Bonilla. Commissioner Patton, go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yes, okay. I just had 2 quick questions. I believe that the Uniform Building Code in California was modified last year, and beginning in January of 21, all new single-family houses have to have solar panels. Will this home have solar panels?
Yeah, so you are correct. The California Building Code was updated, I believe, at the end of 2019, which is now in effect. I believe it does have that stipulation. As of right now, the plans do not identify solar panels, but when they do proceed through the building permit plan check phase for their technical review, that will be a component that will be required.
And under the zoning ordinance, those panels are allowed projections under the height, above the height limit?
I believe so. Yes, I believe how state law currently works is we could not preclude the installation of solar panels.
Okay, and secondly, I know in the last 6 months, several cities, including I think Oakland, have adopted ordinances related to new gas service for new construction. Where is Hayward on the adoption of a new ordinance or a policy for new construction related to gas hookups?
We have, the city did adopt the REACH code as a part of the updates, which does limit the ability to extend gas lines for new construction of single family. So that is applicable here in the city of Hayward as well.
So this building will not have a gas service?
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Patton. Commissioner Bonilla?
One of the letters, there was a comment around flooding of downhill properties on Home Street. Marcus, can you maybe address that? Is that something, isn't the water management plan going to handle that, or is flooding the neighbors a concern that, you guys looked into as well?
Yeah, that is a great question. I actually do have our new senior civil engineer, Scott Wickstrom, on the call as well. He's been working with our engineering team, so I will defer to him to answer that question for you.
Thanks, Marcus.
Good evening. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Scott Wickstrom. I'm the new senior civil engineer in the Development Services Group. I will be participating in these planning commission meetings to provide responses as needed. Yes, that was a concern that was brought up by some of the neighborhood letters. And this project does, of course, include a fairly significant size building, which will have a fair amount of impervious surface. To address that, to mitigate that, they are installing 2 relatively large, they call them energy dissipators, but they're basically detention basins on either side of the property towards the bottom of the slope. In addition, they are also adding in pervious pavements for their lower driveway. So together, these things will help to mitigate the amount of additional runoff that would come from the new impervious surface.
Got it. Thank you. And then, so I'm just going to keep this to questions versus the comment. So is there a way to make the ADU, restrict it to be affordable or something? I know it's affordable by design, but, considering where it is and the fact that it's 2 bedrooms and, 2-car garage and all that kind of stuff. I mean, is there a way to kind of just make sure that that stays affordable?
The short answer is no.
No, I didn't think so. All right. Thought I'd try. Thanks, Marcus.
Okay, let's see. Any other questions from commissioners? Nope. Okay, I'll just ask mine then. I had similar questions about the ADU. I was also just wondering, as far as the spirit of the law for the ADU, is it simply to build more housing or to provide low-income housing? And is that, I mean, something that, like, I guess I don't know what I'm asking there, but what the intent is there.
Right. Yeah. I can only kind of speculate in terms of kind of what the intent or the vision was for the original legislature for ADUs. But our very own Senator Witkowski of Fremont did actually draft that. In short, though, to answer your question, it is to increase the production of housing, especially in neighborhoods that are already established for single-family homes, where there is a lot of opportunity to create more housing units, especially in areas that need it. So, yes, in terms of allowing for low-income housing, I mean, as Commissioner Bonilla had mentioned, they are to some degree affordable by design because to some degree they are smaller, but there is no inherent requirement that they are remaining at affordable levels.
Okay, thank you. And my other question, has to do with one of the, or maybe a couple of the neighbors asked that there's no breakup of the property between the main house and the ADU, and so there's no backyard or anything like that. Is there no requirement that there is that breakup of properties?
No, there's no requirement that an ADU has to be detached from the primary single-family home. They can be attached if they want to.
And no requirement for backyard then?
No, for our zoning code, we only have yard requirements like a front yard setback or a rear yard setback, in which this case, the property owner and the applicant are using that to accommodate their driveway as well as their front yards on both frontages. However, the applicant has introduced within their floor plan a lot of open decks that will kind of serve as a backyard to them at different levels of the home. Okay,
thank you. And then finally, I had another question about the, the runoff that Commissioner Bonilla asked about. I know, so this analysis has been done. So do you expect this house now to create more runoff for the downhill slope? And, or is the amount of open space you're still going to have and the pavers and all that going to offset that? Or do you expect this increased flow? And do the downslope people need to adjust their plan? Because I read in one of the letters, they have some extensive plan to also deal with runoff. And now what this new applicant will put in to deal with runoff. So just wondering what your opinion is about that.
That's a very good question, and it's a very difficult answer to pinpoint, quite frankly. So when you look at drainage calculations, when you start thinking about mitigations, there's a whole different series of criteria, whether it's a 10-year storm or 1-year storm or a 25-year storm and the duration of those storms. What we do is we basically normalize it typically towards like a smaller interval storm, and as such, basically they have mitigated appropriately for the level of impervious surface they're adding. But there may be instances, if it's a really very strong storm, that the runoff will actually exceed what was there previously. So it's impossible to design a system that covers all ranges of storm events, but they have done basically what is appropriate for the level of improvement that they're doing for single-family residents.
Okay, thank you. And it looks like Commissioner Ellie Sullivan, you had some questions now?
Yeah, sorry for the delay there. And Marcus, questions for you, and I apologize in advance for not having asked this earlier to you. I've been out of the country for the last month and just got back last night. I'm curious, though, if you have any idea the backstory on this lot. And the reason I ask is from the letters that we received, neighbors mentioned that they had been living there since the 80s and 90s. And so for the last presumably 30 or even 40 years, this lot has been empty. Do we know if anything had been built and it was torn down, or has it just been empty for that entire time and it wasn't theoretically buildable until there are new technologies developed? Do you have any sense of what the delay has been on building for the last 40 years?
Yeah, that's a kind of good question. Unfortunately, I do not know the answer in terms of what its prior use was, but I do know we do have a lot of members of the OHA community that are joining us today on this call, so they might have a little bit of a glimpse of history of prior owners of this property or what might have been here, if anything.
Yeah, even from Google, it looks like there's not a lot of empty lots in the neighborhood, and so that's why I was curious why this was unbuilt. Again, did not mean to put you on the spot there, so yeah, thank you for that, though.
See, Commissioner Goldstein, you have another question?
Yeah, thank you. It seems as though there wasn't any community outreach in the designing of this property. Do you know, Marcus, if any attempt was made, aside from the standard notifications that go out, was there any effort made to get the developers and designers to meet with the local homeowners?
Beyond our standard notification, I don't believe there is any additional public outreach efforts that were made. We usually always do, as city staff, try to encourage our applicants to speak with the community, especially when there's a homeowners association involved, to see whatever outreach they can do preliminary, either during our submittal or prior to formally submitting to the city.
Commissioner Stevens, did you have another comment?
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. I just have one final question regarding the retention system. I noticed that condition of approval number 39 alludes to a detention system, but it doesn't specifically call out what the criteria is. So as Mr. Wickstrom was noting, are we saying that we're 90% of the pre-existing condition? Are we saying it's a 10-year storm? Like, could that be a little more elaborate or specific?
It's a very good comment and appreciate it. I will say that this condition was written actually before my time here. I think the better way of approaching it would be to look at mitigating to a 10-year storm and using that as a criteria going forward and using that as a verification. That's certainly something that can be amended into the conditions of approval.
Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, so now, do we ask the applicant to give a presentation, or do I move on to the public comment now?
Typically, we would have an applicant presentation after the staff presentation, if there is one, but okay. Marcus didn't indicate that there was going to be an applicant presentation. So if they don't have one, then we would typically at this point go into public comment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now the public is invited to comment on this item. Please raise your hand if you're online, and Secretary Chan, I'll let you do this part. Let's see, Secretary Chan, are you?
Okay.
Oh, let's see.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. If you wish to speak and you're using the Zoom application, please click the raise hand button. If you are dialing in, press *9 to raise your hand on the phone and use *6 to unmute yourself when called to speak. If you are streaming the meeting through Zoom on your computer, but dialing in via phone, please mute yourself so that there is no feedback sound during the meeting. If there is disruptive feedback or excessive noise during the meeting, your audio will be disabled. Chair, at this time, we have 2 speakers. I'm going to call on the first one, Joy Rowan. Go ahead. Okay, we have an issue with Joy. It says she is using an older version of Zoom. So hang on a second.
Secretary Chan, I promoted her to panelist. I'm hoping she might be able to talk now. I don't know. Joy, can you hear us?
I cannot, it doesn't give me the option to unmute her.
Why don't we move on to the next member of the public?
Chair. It says the allowed to talk is not available because Joy Rowan is still using an older version. We did promote her to panelist, but now she's back. Yeah, she's back under attendees.
We may want to encourage Joy to call in on her phone.
Joy, can you please call in to the meeting? All right. So the next speaker will be Robert Carlson. Robert? Please unmute yourself, Robert.
Hi. Is there a John Vacation waiting?
I'm sorry.
No,
You have a
Robert, I
question,
do
Mr.
not
Carlson?
see him. I
Mr.
do not
Carlson?
see him.
Thank you. He's the president of our association. I was going to defer to him for as the first speaker, but since he's not there, I'll speak. I'm Bob Carlson. I'm the vice president of the Old Highlands Homeowners Association. We have gotten the biggest outcry we've ever experienced over this home. First in February of last year when it was first kind of came through, and now again in the last 2 weeks as it returns again. The concern is universal. I want to ask that this item be tabled. I know there's a lot of time invested in people here. I've been on committees like this myself, and I hesitate to ask that, but we only just started going through in detail the staff reports. We've only heard this evening from the staff a few of their verbal explanations. We'd like a full opportunity to respond to both the report and what we heard tonight. I think you as a commission would be interested in the same thing. I mean, you have heard from the city side point of view. Now let's hear from the community side in a full and clear and disclosure of how we view this project. And I want to offer you that opportunity by simply tabling this until the next meeting. We'll be prepared at that time. We'll give you the materials in advance. We can read through the report fully and respond to it. You know, I look in the screen, I see 3 full-time people for the city, and I see 1 part-time person myself right now, plus another part-time person trying to respond and speak for our community. And we'd like a good, fair opportunity to do that. And for that, we need more time. I will offer a few things that might occur and have occurred to me just in the speaking tonight. For example, we talk about parking and the fact that the ADU doesn't have a parking requirement or only a 2-car requirement because it's an ADU. That doesn't excuse the main house. The main house of 5 bedrooms can be required to have up to 5 slots based on that. So we need to separate maybe in some of our discussion, the ADU impact and the main house impact, but parking would be one of those areas where that could be done. The flooding. I live across the street. I'm the one that got flooded. I have, I can't put the picture up, but I have a 4-inch river running through my house. I was woken up by a police officer at 6 in the morning with that happening. I don't see a couple catch basins handling a torrent like that. And I've been flooded twice to the tune of about $30,000 each time to repair my house, put in carpets, walls, redo everything that was destroyed by the water, landscaping. We need to really talk about the mitigation that's going to be put in place in this house for the flooding. I'm coming down to the end of my time. Please give consideration to tabling the item tonight.
Thank you, Secretary Chan. Are there more comments?
Thank you. We have Valerie on the phone. Valerie is ready to speak. Hang on one second. Valerie, can you please unmute yourself?
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
I wanted to answer the question about the lot. I've lived across the street from that lot since 1978. It's always been empty. That's it. You asked the question. I had the answer. And I'm hoping that Joy gets back too. Parking is a very, very serious issue up here, because we already have the house next door to that house that she rents out her rooms, and there's a house for special people 2 houses up from it, and they use that space in front of that lot to park. So it's already hard to find a place to park on Hillcrest because of the extra parking already being taken up. So I'm just saying. That's all.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? And it looks like the applicant's been raising his hand. So wondering when, if I allow them in at this part of the discussion.
Yeah, that would be appropriate.
Okay.
At this time, there's nobody else is raising their hands for the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. And the applicant, did you want to make some comments at this point?
Do we want to close, Chair, do we want to close the public hearing?
Yeah, do I close the public hearing now, even though the applicant's speaking, or is he part of the?
You don't have to close the public comments
Okay.
at this point. You can have the applicant present and then close the public comments after that.
All right, thank you. Okay, go ahead. So I see, is the applicant there? Did you want to make comments now? I see they unmuted.
Mr. Doe?
Hello.
We hear you.
Hi, I'm Brad. I'm the owner. I guess you have the applicant down as Bitcoin Doe.
Yes.
She's just the architect designer.
I see. Okay.
Okay, so I wanted to kind of clarify a few things based on some of the comments from the public. One is this is going to be my primary residence. I'm not building this just to get rid of. I'm not trying to squeeze in a multifamily unit building. I'm remarried. I have a wife that's from Vietnam, and she has an extended family that's going to be coming. That's the main purpose for the ADU, along with. I used to live in the area up there. I'm very sensitive to the to everything they've discussed here tonight. The parking, I know it's extremely bad up there. The one-way street is very narrow. I know people go quickly up and down that street. That's why we put in the 4 parking garages. I mean, the lot is extremely unique because there's a street at each end. So it provides access to allow more parking. I got the garages. The garages take care of the main unit. It's been, I think, somewhat misrepresented because the home itself has the 4 units, those cars. The garages are for the 4 units for the main house. The ADU, it didn't require it because it's within a half mile, but there's still at least 2 parking spots up on Hillcrest in the driveway. I know you guys don't count those, but that would be 2 cars that are not on the street. And then there's enough parking for 2 to 4 vehicles on home. Now, I'm not planning on having that many vehicles, just so everyone knows. My intent is to not have, 10 vehicles. I don't want them. But that's why the parking is as it is, or the garages are as they are. The runoff, I totally understand the runoff issue up there. Without the streets, I know they have a deferred street improvement agreement up there. And yeah, there's no, they don't even have ditches or anything in there. So besides the mitigation that's already planned for this, I believe the city has already got some plans in the works for development of that city. So I would like to kind of see what they have, if I could partially incorporate some of that to help mitigate when there is the additional flooding. So it's diverted properly down the side of the streets as opposed to over the road and into the neighbor's property. So I want to minimize that because I wouldn't want it happening to me either. So that is it. Oh, and the solar, yeah, they were asking about the solar. Yes, I was planning on that. I knew they were changing the law, so the solar will be on there. And as far as the height, I would be putting it at the levels maybe in front of some of the decks so they wouldn't be seen. It wouldn't add to the height of the property. I haven't fully got it designed yet, but there's ways to mitigate that. And on the one section, the flat roof, it's well under the 30 feet, so it wouldn't even stick above the highest part of the home. So that being said, that's pretty much all I have to say at this point. I appreciate staff and Marcus's time on this.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments. Let's see, did anybody else pop up wanting to make a public comment, Secretary Chan?
Thank you, Chair. Hang on, somebody just popped up. Hang on. Okay, area code 510 and last four numbers 018. Would you like to unmute yourself? Person with the telephone.
Hello.
Okay, there they go.
Yes. This is Joy Rowan. I for some reason the computer just wouldn't let me in before, and I think it's been well covered regarding the storm mitigation and the parking, and I'm really glad to hear that Brad is actually going to be living in the house, because I was wondering about that since I knew he was of this neighborhood. I was wondering about him building a house that might cause a lot of controversy. So it was really good to hear him speak. And I think the storm mitigation really is no joke. And using a 10-year storm in an age of climate change is a big mistake. And so I really urge you all to reconsider that, because I've seen what it did to Bob's house, and that's why the neighborhood actually put in its own storm drains, and they go down the hill kind of under Bob's house. I don't think you'll have much luck putting it out onto the street. And so that area really needs to be studied. I'm not sure how much time I have left, and the parking really is an issue. And what has happened with several houses up here that have 5 or 6 bedrooms is they are just counted as a dormitory. The owner doesn't live there, and they rent out the house to students. And so we have a lot of cars in those houses, and not enough parking. So that's pretty much it. Thank you very much. And congratulations to everybody on the Planning Commission. Happy New Year.
Thank you. And it looks like I don't see any other comments at this point. Do you agree, Secretary Chan?
Yes, I agree. Nobody else has raised their hand.
Okay, so with that, if there's no further comments, then we will close public comments at this point and go into Planning Commission member discussion. Let's see. So let me go over here to see. So go ahead and raise your hands. And if commissioners have discussions, let's begin that part. Okay, Commissioner Goldstein.
Yeah. The concerns that the neighbors have, I don't think have been adequately addressed. The design of the home and the points that Mr. Switzer made are all well made. The project, to me, looks very attractive. But, the process, especially with the recent changes in state law addressing ADUs and so forth, I think are leaving other property owners, particularly in that area, but just more generally, really feeling like they're being put upon. And I think the only way to address that is for us to table this vote, the recommendation, and give the applicant and the homeowners association and the city planners some time to meet and come to some agreement on this. Frankly, I don't really see any problem with the project, in terms of, city definitely did its job. I believe that Mr. Switzer, as the owner of the property, has a right to build. And I don't think anything indicates that there's anything excessive going on here. But I kind of hate this feeling that I'm getting that the decision-making, just seems kind of heavy-handed. I don't mean that in an offensive way. Marcus, you didn't do anything wrong. I just think in order to get everybody on the same page and get some agreement, I think we need to table this discussion and have all the principal parties meet and decide what they want to do with this. So that's my comment.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Goldstein. Commissioner Bonilla.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldstein, were you going to make a motion to that effect, or are we going to finish public comments?
Well,
I mean, our comments.
And then I'll make that motion. So I am intending to make that motion that we table it.
Okay. So my comments are, I am also very concerned about the flooding. I live, in the hills, at the foothills of Hayward. So I tend to oftentimes get impacted by the flooding. So I can totally understand the neighbors' perspectives related to that. And I do appreciate us looking at building some kind of flood mitigation, for up to, that 10-year storm. But I think the points that were made around climate change and climate adaptation and how fast things are changing, we probably might need to look at mitigation for something larger than just that 10-year storm. And I'm not sure what exactly that would be, but obviously flood mitigation is important, especially in this area. When I was looking, at the size of the house and how it was going to be built and how much of the land it was going to take up compared to the rest of the neighbors, I sort of had a little bit of discomfort in coming to the conclusion that this property, or this development rather, kind of conforms with the existing neighborhood. It seems huge and very bulky compared to the rest of the neighborhood. So, I just kind of had some feelings about that. And then also, as it relates to the ADU, the way that it's set up, and it's it's completely restricted from the main property. My only concern there is just really making sure that, it remains affordable. So I was happy to hear that the owner was planning to live there and was also planning to, have his in-laws live in the ADU. So that made me feel a little bit better. But I guess the fragmentation that's happening between the applicant and the neighbors is something that I would also like to see worked out. I mean, if it was a surprise to the folks who are a part of this homeowners association that, Mr. Switzer was even going to be living there, I think that shows a lack of communication between the two parties. So I think there is an opportunity for them to come together and iron out some of these things before we make a decision. But I do have, concerns about just the size, the scale, and the appearance of this within this residential neighborhood. Those are my only comments, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Bonilla. Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you. So the first thing is I would take Mr. Wickstrom up on his offer. I think condition number 39 needs to be properly written to actually put requirements on the detention system. And secondly, as a resident of OHA, this is a semi-rural natural setting. And I think a lot of us live here because, we enjoy this, we're out of the city type living. And I think there's a character that this community has that as development occurs needs to be respectful of that. And one thing that I found perturbing about this development is that there's a 20-inch in diameter oak tree being removed along the frontage. And in a lot of communities throughout the Bay Area, this would bring lots of comment. I mean, a 20-inch in diameter oak tree is probably 50, 60, 70 years old. I mean, that's a specimen tree that's being removed. And I find it frustrating that the development does not embrace that tree. And I think, architectural form and site design are critical. They create the neighborhood, the character of our neighborhoods. And, while I appreciate, staff's effort in helping applicants kind of develop these, I think historically, maybe we haven't done a great job of really helping design, helping create great design. And I'd really appreciate if the applicant could go back to the drawing board and develop a structure that's a little more respectful of the hillside, a little more respectful of the character of the environment. I think open space is important. I recognize decks are open space, but there's no dirt under a deck. So I really have trouble seeing this development fitting into the character of this community. So I would second the tabling of this item, because I think there needs to be a little more work done with the applicant and the association, the neighborhood, to come up with a little bit better plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. Commissioner Ali Sullivan?
Thank you. So I guess two thoughts. The first, I had a note here saying that, depending on the outcome of tonight's meeting, that I hope that the owner of the property, who obviously is familiar with the neighborhood, and the homeowners association, which is familiar with the owner, can find a way to work together going forward, because this person is presumably going to be living in the neighborhood and in the house. Hearing the discussion of my fellow commissioners as it relates to tabling this and having an opportunity for the two parties to talk further, I do see some wisdom there if there's a willingness on the part of the applicant to meet with the homeowners association to discuss the plans and the background on him choosing to live there and how the ADU is going to be used. It would be good to see if they could come to some common ground. I don't know if that involves changing the plan or if it involves just explaining what that use of the property is going to be. But if there's an opportunity for them to have some discussions to get to a point where there's more of an agreement, then I'd be open to that. The second thought I had as it relates to ADUs. So my understanding of ADUs in the academic sense in learning about it in planning school was that these were really sort of, thought of as secondary units that would sort of go in the backyard of a house, a very small, studio or one bedroom type situation. And so when I first read the notes on the application, I thought, okay, it's a lot with a separate structure in the back. I was not aware that an ADU could actually be physically attached to the house, which I guess legally speaking, it's not defined as a separate structure, separated, i.e. completely separated, but it is just separated from the main house with walls. I wonder if that really is the spirit of the laws around ADUs and if, or if the spirit was more about providing affordable housing and providing an opportunity for people to get into housing that otherwise, housing stock that otherwise isn't there. And so in some ways, it almost seems like this is getting around what the spirit of an ADU is, to add a second property literally onto the house, but having the two driveways. And so while it is legally allowed, I wonder if this is, the spirit of what ADUs were. And I sort of question that a little bit. But from a legal perspective, as City has explained, it meets the definitions of ADUs. And so I guess all that to say, I'm curious if if the owner is willing to have some further discussions with the homeowners association to see if there's an opportunity for them to come to further agreement.
Thank you, Commissioner Ellis Sullivan. Commissioner Patton?
Yes. I want to maybe take a minority position potentially here. Just in terms of process, I want to remind the commissioners that the reason we're here really is because of the grading permit. That's the permit. The site plan review is a staff decision, and staff has brought it to us because the grading permit requires that it go to the city council. And my understanding is the only way to get it there would be to come through the planning commission. Now, I know that I raised this issue with Sarah maybe a year and a half ago about how other cities, typically if it's a staff decision, they just condition that decision that the grading permit, which is actually issued by, I believe, building services or engineering, would go to the council as a condition of approval of the site plan review. And I think our conversation tonight illustrates why I had that concern. A couple of things. A lot of the issues we've been talking about, I think local agencies are preempted by state law when it comes to ADUs, the solar issue, the fact that ADUs, the intent of the ADU legislation from the state has always been about affordable housing. It's always been about how to allow those to happen in as many circumstances as possible, whether attached or detached. In terms of drainage, and I'm a kid who grew up, my parents' home is in the Oakland Hills, and I grew up on many stormy nights standing outside with a hose with my dad at 3 o'clock in the morning, sucking water out from under the house. So I'm very sensitive in terms of my own experience to that. But my experience as a planner over 30-something years tells me that in most cases, instead of the sheet flow that normally occurs from a hillside property, that when you improve the property, you're actually able to contain that water within the system. And if we have a retention basin or retention pond and some way to regulate the flow downhill, in many cases, the drainage is actually better once you develop the property from an engineering perspective and a water flow perspective. And I think from hearing the discussion, for me anyway, I'm not convinced that there can be any real material changes other than obviously the benefit of communication between the property owner and the neighbors. But what material changes could occur by a delay? And secondly, when you look at how at least the recent ADU ordinances and the direction from state on how cities provide ADUs, what they emphasize is the benefit of fast tracking and streamlining. And in my opinion, the fact that we're talking about this and even to delay it further is clearly not that. So those are my concerns.
Thank you, Commissioner Patton. Were there any other concerns that anyone wanted to add? Okay, I'll just give my comments. I think I was feeling along the same lines as Commissioner Patton, to be honest, that I agree that it seems like it was just because of the slope situation that we were, that this was even before us, and then everything else was sort of in line with the city ordinances, and they've worked together with city staff to do all that, and they've worked together with the civil engineers to make sure that there is mitigation effort for flooding. And I think as the neighbor illustrated, there's already flooding going on up there. So I think it is a broader issue that obviously needs to be addressed for the whole neighborhood going forward. And that's obviously a city issue with the homeowners association, I suppose. So, and I appreciate Commissioner Patton's comments about that with the improvement on the property, perhaps there will be some opportunity to capture some of that water that might make a difference. I'm not an engineer, so I can't say for sure on that one, but I appreciate those comments. And also, Commissioner Stevens mentioned how, maybe there should be sort of a broader plan about architecture. And I agree, because I drove around the neighborhood and I felt like it was very eclectic. And it seems to me there's a few, I saw at least one or two like kind of mini mansions that are totally out of place in the hillside, in my opinion. And obviously those went through, and there are lots of large homes that you don't notice because you just see the front of the house and the rest steps down the hillside. And so I think the only difference here is this lot is going to be so visible. It's not stepping down from everyone's view. It's going to be visible because of where it's located on the hillside. And I thought the architecture to me sort of did kind of come closer to what I would think what a hillside house might look like, with the decks and the subtle colors and all of that. So I wasn't offended by the architecture, and especially considering some of the homes that are up there. I think there's some misplaced homes that might look better in a planned community somewhere. So I mean, I'd be interested to hear maybe what the city attorney has to say about what would it mean if we were to table this, and what are we asking if we do that? So sort of interested in hearing a little bit more about that option.
Yeah, so a motion to table would essentially hold this item over to the next meeting, and it would be addressed then. And why that doesn't particularly make a lot of sense here, and why we don't typically do that at Planning Commission, is this item is actually just looking for recommendation to City Council. So by not voting, you're not really helping City Council evaluate that proposal. So it would actually be better to vote either up or down to give that feedback to City Council. And that feedback could be, addressing the the condition of approval regarding, drainage and retention, recommendations towards those specifics, so staff can when they bring this item to city council, kind of alter it. If we just table the motion, then this item just gets pushed to our next meeting, and we're in the same exact spot. So I would just add that perspective.
Okay, and that way, I assume the homeowners association would have time to get their ducks in a row and present that to the city council ahead of time.
It would give them that additional time, but they would also have that time to present this to city council, as their comments at that time, because this is just a recommendation to city council. They still have an opportunity to address city council, which will be the ultimate decision maker on this item.
Okay, and it looks like commissioners want to chime in. Commissioner Ellie Sullivan, and then I'll get to Commissioner Goldstein.
Yeah, I was going to say, just sort of piggybacking on what was just mentioned, what would be the purpose of tabling it? My concerns were really that there was a lack of communication between the homeowner and the homeowners association, as was evidenced in the calls this evening. However, by delaying it to another 2 weeks, what will that actually allow for? Besides some further communication with the association and the homeowner, there's not a situation where they could redesign the property in a couple of weeks. And so, at the end of the day, I think beyond addressing maybe some of the questions around parking and around use of the house, issues around scale and around water management aren't going to change with communication between the HOA and the property owner. As far as additional time for the HOA to review documents, based on the letters we received, it looks like this is something that's been under review by the HOA for over a year now. And so their initial documents came in over a year ago addressing their concerns around the property. And so, I'm not entirely sympathetic to the idea that, an additional couple of weeks would allow for some additional review that would provide more insight to the city. I think the city has done a good job of reviewing the comments and letters from the HOA and addressed the points raised in a satisfactory manner. And so I'm not sure if any additional time would present new material that hasn't already been addressed by the city.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldstein?
Yeah, thank you. So, I hear what you're saying about the original letters being received a year earlier. Is that actually true? When I read those dates, I thought they were all current dates, and maybe what you saw was something that was misdated for January.
Some are back in February 26, 2020.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. I at first thought they were misdated too. And then I had to look again. I said, wait a second, these are from a year ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So thank you for that. That changes a little bit. When is this item going to be heard by City Council? How much time between our recommendation tonight and the time that it's heard by City Council? Anybody know?
Commissioner Goldstein, the item is tentatively scheduled to be reviewed by the City Council on February 16th. So that'd be about a little bit less than 3 weeks from now.
I see. Okay. So I think under the circumstances and with the explanation that Joe gave, and also in light of the comments from Commissioner Patton about our obligation not unnecessarily to put some delay in here, I would make the motion. I am making the motion that
Commissioner Goldstein, before you make the motion, Commissioner Stevens had one more comment. Do you want to make your motion, or do you want to wait and finish out the comment?
I'll wait.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I thought.
No, it's okay.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Stevens?
I was just going to make the point that as Chair Roche mentioned, that the architectural form in a lot of our communities within the city often doesn't fit the neighborhood. And I see this as an opportunity to influence how this development is going to look and feel, forever. So I think that this would be a really wonderful opportunity for the applicant and the association to work over the next several weeks to refine the concept, to adjust the architecture, and provide something that's a little more suitable and a little more consistent with the neighborhood's character. So I don't think that tabling the item is really an issue. It requires the applicant to put a little more due diligence in and spiff up the design to really hear what the community is stating.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. Okay, with no further comments, then I will go back to Commissioner Goldstein. Did you have a motion?
Yeah. So I move that I move that we make we are making the recommendation to approve with conditions that issues with the community related to parking, size, water, what else? Did I miss something? So that those issues that have come up in our conversation today, that those things are adequately addressed in time for the city council meeting.
Okay, did you want to say something, Marcus?
Yeah,
Okay.
Commissioner Golsey, sorry, could you elaborate on what those added conditions were to your motion? I understand, I think there's the will of the commission to amend the condition number 39 relating to the 10-year storm drainage. But regarding parking and all the other ones you mentioned, I just want to get clarity what direction you're giving us.
I need some help putting some words behind this, but basically what I want to see happen is I want the developers and the homeowners and the homeowner association to agree cooperatively on how this is going to go forward. So the primary issues that they brought up were parking and the drainage. And I think maybe they were having some concerns over the size and appearance. I personally don't, but you know, they have some issues with that, and I think they need to come to some agreement together.
So if I could interrupt, Commissioner Goldstein. So if I restated your motion, would it be to approve staff's recommendation with the addition to condition number 39 that the water drainage be addressed for a 10-year storm, or whatever the city engineer deems appropriate, and then along with that, a recommendation that the parties meet and discuss items such as parking and the other items before the city council meeting?
Thank you, Joe. Once again, you saved my bacon in this meeting, and I really appreciate it.
So what's the value in having them meet? I mean, if they don't agree, I mean, they're going to get on the phone. The applicant's going to say what he's going to say. They're going to say what they're going to say, and then they're going to hang up the phone and go about their ways. And I guess, is that what the intent is, Commissioner Goldstein? Is that they just have a conversation?
Right. So if they can't resolve their issues by the time they get to city council, then they get to air their grievances again, and then city council is going to make the final decision.
So I'm not sure, well, first do I ask if there's, because I'm not sure if we have a clear motion, like, can we do this? Is this, besides saying aye, are we just adding recommendations?
That was Joe's.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't make the parties meet and discuss those items, but you can recommend that they do. The condition number 39, condition of approval number 39, that, I mean, you can recommend updating that condition.
Sorry. Do we have a second on that motion?
So I'll second that motion. I will say that it is a recommendation that they talk. As Commissioner Bonilla mentioned, we can't require them to do anything. However, if I'm the homeowner, I think it's incumbent upon me to try and smooth things over as much as possible with the association, because I'm going to be living there. And so, I think the recommendation is really one more of almost common sense that, let me see if I can work with them, as opposed to us requiring anything to be done there. So I would second the motion to accept staff's recommendation with the adjustment of requirement number 39 in regards to water mitigation.
Okay, so do we want to clarify the motion? And if not, we get to a vote on this. Is that correct? Okay, and is everyone clear on what the motion? Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Joe, if you can.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, the motion's been seconded, so you can debate, but then it has to be voted on before you can move on. So if you want me to restate the motion?
Please.
Okay. So the motion, which was made by Commissioner Goldstein, seconded by Commissioner Sullivan, is that Planning Commission recommend to the City Council that they approve the project as instructed by staff, with the addition of a recommendation that the condition of approval number 39 is updated to reflect at least a 10-year storm at the discretion of the city engineer, and that there's a recommendation that the parties meet before the City Council meeting and try to resolve some of the parking issues and explain what the project is.
Thank you. So let's call for a vote. Secretary Chan?
All right, thank you. Joe, what was that last part? That the parties meet regarding parking and what?
You're on mute, Joe.
Sorry. That the parties meet to discuss parking and any other items before the City Council meeting.
Oh, just parking and any other items? That's okay, like that, to be vague?
Yes, it's just a recommendation. It's not a condition.
One sec. The COA number 39 is updated to reflect a 10-year storm. And what was the second part about the city engineer?
To be reviewed by the city engineer.
Okay, thank you. All right. One sec. Commissioner Ali Sullivan.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldstein.
Aye.
Commissioner Bonilla.
No.
Commissioner Patton.
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens.
No.
Chair Roche.
Yes.
That's 4 ayes and 2 noes. Correct?
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay, so the motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Let's see, so the motion carried by 4 yeses and 2 noes. With that, thank you, everyone. We move on to the next item, which is, let's see, the approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of October 22nd, 2020.
Thank you.
Second that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. Can we call for a vote on that, Secretary Chan?
Okay, I'm sorry. Commissioner Bonilla made the motion,
Yes.
and it was second by?
Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you. Commissioner Ali Sullivan.
Aye.
Commissioner Bonilla.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldstein.
Aye.
Commissioner Patton.
You're on mute, Commissioner Patton.
Commissioner Patton.
Abstain. I'm sorry. Abstain. I was not at that meeting.
Thank you. Commissioner Stevens.
Yes.
Chair Roche.
Yes.
Thank you. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses and 1 abstain. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we're on to commission reports and commissioner announcements. And I think Commissioner Patton, you said you had an announcement you wanted to make?
Yes, I do.
We can hear you. We heard you before.
Okay, I'm back. I've advised the mayor, and I think I've copied Sarah with an announcement early this week that as of April 1, I will be resigning from the Planning Commission. I actually had planned to make this move last year, but like everyone else, COVID kind of put everything on hold for a year. But I'm planning to relocate out of the area into the Atlanta area. In fact, it's kind of an interesting story. I'm reconnecting with my my college girlfriend. She and I dated for 3 years out of 4 at UC San Diego, and then school ended, and she went home, and I went home, and she went to LA, and I came to Oakland, and then life kind of just took us in different directions, and we've reconnected. We've spoken off and on over the years. I had a family, she had a family. Those kids are now all grown. She's now retiring. I just turned 65. She's 65, and so we've been reconnecting, and we've discovered that we spent our whole lives looking for what we had at age 20. And so, we have an opportunity now, I think, to maybe finish our story. So certainly 2 retired folks can live a lot nicer in Atlanta than they can in the Bay Area from a financial perspective. So, if there was one lesson from COVID, I think we all learned, which is if you want to be happy, tomorrow is not promised. And don't talk about it, be about it. So I'm getting ready to go be about it and do some traveling and be reunited with somebody special that's been special to me for a long time. So that's my announcement. But I'll be here through the end of March.
Well, thank you for that lovely story.
Well, there's even more intrigue intertwined into that if you didn't believe in God, you probably would when I finish talking about this story. So that's it for me, and I appreciate you guys. It's been a lot of fun, 2.5 years, and I'm sure you guys will measure on. You're all great people, and it's been a pleasure working with you. And it's kept me as a retired person. I've been retired 10 years now. I spent the first few years participating in a mentorship program with the YMCA, mentoring high school youth, young African American youth with some challenges, and the last 2.5 years here with the Planning Commission. So, after 30 years in the public sector, I've done my community thing. Now it's time to go be selfish for a few years and do some traveling. The second thing I had is, Sarah, would you please give us, I don't know if this is the right time agenda-wise, but would you give us an update on the Costco project, what the council did? And I think there's some things that are coming out of that may come before the commission at some point.
Sure. I do have a few announcements for the commission. I can start with your request, Commissioner Patton, and then I'll work backwards with where I was going to start with my announcements, but I'll start with that. The Costco item did move forward to council. They did approve the Costco gas station, but they did make some recommendations to a change in the process, and they recently adopted a resolution that is going to change the process if we receive any requests for fueling stations that want to maintain, typical fuel. So any future new auto fueling stations need to be brought before the Council Economic Development Committee. then brought to the Planning Commission for a recommendation, and then ultimately to the City Council for a final decision. And they adopted that resolution Tuesday night to sort of modify the process for new fueling stations in the city of Hayward. So as we see those, you'll start to see things. I mean, those uses typically require a conditional use permit that would have come before the Planning Commission anyway for a final decision. But in this case, they requested a modification to that process to add in the Council Economic Development Committee and then ultimately a final decision by the City Council. So those are some changes that will be coming forth. What I wanted to do, officially, I wanted to bring Zachariah Okenda over and have him have his camera on. And I wanted to just welcome him officially to the Planning Commission. It's exciting to have you join our group, Zachariah. Zachariah was appointed officially on Tuesday. He was sworn in this afternoon, I believe, by the city clerk's office, but just not really sufficient time to kind of get him up to speed, although, who knows, maybe he had an opportunity to review things before tonight, but we wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to give him a proper onboarding so that he feels really comfortable as he embarks on his journey with our Planning Commission. So welcome, Zachariah. We're really excited to have you be part of the Planning Commission.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome, Zachariah.
And then, sorry, I will let you all continue.
Welcome, Zachariah.
Do you mind if I just say something real quick?
No, please, by all means.
I just wanted to, thank you for the welcoming. I'm definitely going to be doing the review to try to get up to speed. After watching this meeting, I haven't been present for some of these Zoom meetings, so it's been quite a while. But I'm really excited to work with you all. You all are clearly, really take this work seriously, and you're very thoughtful and considerate, and your deliberation on this body is admirable. I'm really excited to be able to be a part of that and to contribute to that, and to learn from all of you and the great work that you're doing. I'm really sad, Commissioner Patton. I've been really looking forward to getting to work with you on the commission, given your history and your extensive knowledge in planning and city planning and community development. But I'm really happy for you, and I'm excited, for what your future holds in this new stage of your life as well. So just wanted to say that, and hopefully have the opportunity to see you all again in a few weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And then Chair Roche, just one final comment. I wanted to keep the rest of you sort of in the loop. So there's a number of other changes that are sort of happening at the city. As you probably saw, our former Assistant City Manager, Maria Hurtado, retired at the end of last year. Deputy City Manager Jennifer Ott was promoted to Assistant City Manager, which is really exciting, well-deserved. As a part of additional transition, our fearless leader, Director Laura Simpson, will be retiring at the end of March. And so there'll be some shifting of some roles. Fortunately, I will be moving up into sort of deputy director role for development services. I'll be promoting, thank you. I'll be promoting Jeremy Lakirko and Leah Schmidt up to acting planning manager and acting principal planner. So you'll likely to see Jeremy and Leah more often at these proceedings moving forward, as I will need to spend a little more time at city council meetings and taking on some new roles and responsibilities. But I wanted to give you that heads up because I think you'll start seeing them starting in February, a little more than you will probably see me, although I do enjoy these planning commission meetings, and as items are moving forward through the commission up to council, I definitely want to keep myself apprised of sort of the activities and the actions and your recommendations and your thoughts related to development projects moving forward. So you will see me, just maybe not as often as you have seen me. So just wanted to share that with you all so that it didn't come as a surprise. But again, welcome. I'm really excited to keep working with all of you, and we'll see how this year goes. We've got lots of projects coming before you in the next several months, lots of developments and projects moving forward that I know will keep you busy. So welcome, Zachariah, again, and thank you all for all your hard work. We will definitely miss you, Commissioner Patton, but I'm glad we have you for a little while longer. We really have really enjoyed your expertise, and I've really appreciated having you part of this commission. So you will be sorely missed.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Are there any other commissioner announcements or comments, given all the exciting news that we're hearing? No? Well, I also want to wish Commissioner Patton good luck. Yay for UC San Diego, our alma mater, making a match that lasts all these years. That's awesome. Awesome news. And again, welcome, Zachariah. I got to serve with you once before, and so now we get to serve again on the Planning Commission. So that's great. Let's see.
And congratulations to Sarah.
Yes, congratulations, Sarah. That's exciting.
That is wonderful.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, if there are no other comments, then we will adjourn.
Thank you. Great job, Chair.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Congratulations, Sarah and Commissioner Patton.
Thanks.
All right. See you all.
Bye.
The recording has stopped.